Hi there, my name is Melissa Laco. I am a board certified behavior analyst at Julie Billiart School's Akron campus. This is part of a series of resources for parents to use during distance learning due to the global pandemic and then beyond. So today's presentation, entitled "Why Do You Act the Way That You Do?" focuses on the function or the purpose of behavior. This presentation is more informational versus application and gives some background information on behavior and how it works. All behavior is a form of communication, and every behavior has a function. So that is, it serves a purpose. So dealing with problematic behavior is most effective when you have a better idea of what purpose the problematic behavior serves. So moving right along, one thing that I do want to mention is that I will use the word behavior a lot during this presentation. When we use the word behavior as behavior analysts, it covers all actions and behaviors and not just the negative stuff. If I am talking about an example of a negative behavior or anything, I will refer to it as problematic behavior. But I just wanted to let you know that the word behavior in this case covers all actions and behaviors. So let's look at the function of behavior. So what is function? So the function is the purpose that a behavior serves. So behavior doesn't occur for no good reason or out of the blue. All behavior does serve a function, and some are easier to identify than others. So we have to determine what is maintaining or strengthening the behavior and why does it keep happening. So take a seat. There are 4 functions of behavior, and we typically use the acronym SEAT for that. So S stands for sensory, E stands for escape/avoidance, A stands for attention, and T stands for tangible, and I will get into all 4 of those. So one function is sensory. Sometimes it's called automatic or self-stimulatory behaviors. So a person engages in this behavior because it feels, looks, tastes, or sounds good, and it happens regardless of what's going on and or who is present or not present. And it can also be a self-regulation tool. So examples of automatic behaviors are physical stims, like hand flapping or rocking, vocal stims, which are scripting or other non-contextual vocals, or self-injury, skin picking, or head banging would be 2 examples of that. Another example of vocal stim can also be perseveration, repeating the same thing over and over and over. So these automatic or self-stimulatory behaviors are the hardest to address, and it's not clear-cut because they're receiving some sort of stimulation on the inside. So for behaviors like this, you really do want to use a lot of blocking and redirection, and if possible, to teach a replacement behavior that serves that same function or purpose or feels the same. For example, I had a client who would aggressively rock back and forth, and blocking and redirecting would only work temporarily. And the rocking, it was very hard, very pervasive. It was getting in the way of his academics. Socially, people were looking at him and his family like they were strange, which was really sad. And so we worked on using a different strategy with him that was more socially appropriate and also seek to serve that same function. So we would redirect him anytime he started rocking or we sensed that he was going to. Redirected him to a game chair, so that way he could get that rocking sensation, and also it was definitely a more socially appropriate response. So our second function is escape or avoidance, and it really is just what it sounds like: to escape a task, demand, or directive. And then avoidance is to avoid coming in contact with something aversive, like a specific person, a loud noise, particular texture, certain food, things like that. So, as we're going along this presentation, try to think of some examples in your household or in general, or things that you may have encountered during distance learning. So We all try to escape things. Not going to sugarcoat that. Is it always appropriate? No. So, some examples of inappropriate escape or avoidance behaviors that children or students can engage in would be things like running out of the room when a demand is placed, that is escape, or sometimes refusing to join a group, which is avoidance behavior. The third function is attention, which is just what it sounds like. Um, a person is engaging in a problematic behavior to gain someone's attention. So it could be by positive or negative means. Some people just do not care how they receive the attention, they just want some form of it. So, also, again, think of some examples in your household, in general, things you may have seen in public, or even with distance learning. So, some examples of inappropriate attention seeking behavior. You're on the phone and your child begins yelling and waving his hands in the air, trying to get your attention. Um, and it can range from that to things that are, quite frankly, a little bit gross. At one point in my career, I was working in a clinic, and a little boy was trying to get my attention in very inappropriate ways. And I, withheld that attention. And eventually, he started licking up and down my arm to try and get my attention. So we did prompt him to engage in an appropriate response, but it took quite a while and a lot of saliva on my arm. And the fourth and final one is tangible, and sometimes it is called access. Person engages in this behavior to engage or obtain access to something preferred, and it can be by appropriate means or not. So it could be an item, an activity, a person, a consumable item. And of course, I encourage you to think of some negative examples in your household in general with the distance learning. And some examples of an inappropriate access behavior. Think of that classic example of a kid throwing a tantrum over not being able to receive candy at the grocery store. Chances are, if he had asked his mother appropriately, maybe he could have gotten a desired response. But anyway, regardless, throwing a tantrum in the middle of a grocery store is not an effective way to gain access to that candy. So, why is the function of behavior so important? So, the best strategies you can use are ones that specifically address the purpose of the behavior. So, it is important because some behaviors can serve a different function or purpose for different people. So, you never want to assume. So, for example, swiping a pencil off the desk could be escape for one person, and it could be attention seeking for another. So, it's really important to figure that out because you wouldn't want to accidentally reinforce problematic behavior. Some behaviors also have a dual function or serve multiple purposes. So, a common example is escape to access. And sometimes we see that at JBA. We have students who try to escape from the room. It's not necessarily tied to a demand, but it could be. So they try to escape from the room to access a particular staff member or our therapy dog, Sydney. So the primary function is escape, the secondary is access. So they are escaping to access something preferred. And in order to most effectively reduce problematic behavior and teach an appropriate alternative behavior, which I'll get into in just a second, we must first figure out the function or the purpose of behavior. So, alternative behaviors, it is great to decrease problematic behavior, but also equally important to teach appropriate alternative behaviors. So, how do you choose an appropriate replacement behavior? A replacement behavior or alternative behavior should require less effort yet serve the same purpose and meet that same reinforcement as a problematic behavior. So, some alternative behaviors for escape would be asking for a break, asking for help, asking if they could do something else, or say you're having a tough time transitioning from something preferred to non preferred, asking if they can have an extra minute. Alternative behaviors for attention could be tapping the shoulder, saying, "Excuse me," raising your hand. Potential replacement behavior for the tangible or access would be to potentially verbally request the item. And then as for sensory or automatic, like I said, they are the hardest one to address as it's not always clear cut and happening on the outside or on the inside, I'm sorry. So like I said, you want to use a lot of blocking and redirection with these ones. And then if possible, teacher replacement behavior that serves that same function. Like I referenced earlier, the example with one of my former kiddos and rocking in the game chair. So applying your knowledge of functions, like I said before, the best strategies you can use are ones that specifically address the purpose of behavior. So try your best to figure out what purpose that behavior serves and take it and run with it. So if you don't address the function of behavior, chances are whatever you are trying to do will not work for long or really at all. So once you've determined the function, you can figure out ways to handle the behavior as well as potential more appropriate alternative behaviors. So, and if you know me, if you've worked with me, I do ask a lot of questions when we encounter a new behavior because I am trying to get a feel for the functions. And whenever I am at JB and we encounter a brand new behavior, I do ask the teachers to take a lot of detailed data for me. We have some questionnaires to fill out, things like that. So it is very, very important to pinpoint the purpose of a problematic behavior so that we can best come up with any strategies to try to avoid this problematic behavior. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, need any specifics, feel free to email me at any time. My email address is mlaco, L-A-C-O, @jbschool.org. And as always, if there's something you'd like to see more of, please let me know. Have a good one.